Well, welcome again to Flame of Truth. I was just on the road speaking the other day, and amazing still how many people come up to me who have a satellite dish and somehow find this program. So I'm blessed that you're watching today. I'm Dan Smith, Senior Pastor down at Garden Grove Church, a group of wonderful people that I'm thoroughly enjoying. Anyway, we're going to wrestle with another hard question that we've been looking at. Does the Christian life involve just gritting your teeth, white-knuckle religion, using all the willpower you have to somehow fight away sin? Or is there another way to look at it? So this is called The Man Who Went Naked to the Wedding. It's based on an old sermon an uncle of mine, Maury Venden, used to preach, but I've done a few things with it. Anyway, but before we get into it, love to have you hear this flute solo by Lindsay Char. Her mother Marie is going to accompany her, called On Eagle's Wings. Hope you'll enjoy this. Well, wasn't that a treat? A gift from LLBN to you today on Flame of Truth. Thank you, Lindsay and Marie. What a gift. Well, here we go to this hard question. Many of us can relate to this, I think, that the Christian life, you come to Christ, you come to forgiveness and grace, and it's all new, all the sins are wiped away, and then comes this second part of Christianity, trying to live like a Christian. Jesus said to the woman caught in adultery, now neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. It's the go and sin no more part that is hard. And we've all used our willpower and tried to find a way. And that's where this issue is. Is Christianity, the normal Christian life, a life of struggle and grit and willpower? My uncle had a couple parables that he liked, and these have become classics. So let me just, he's not preaching anymore, is retired and not able to go. So I hate to have these stories never be told anymore. So here they are, very short version. In Las Vegas, and finally this person decides he's tired of Las Vegas. Tired of the money and the late nights and the smoke-filled rooms and the gambling. There's got to be a better life somewhere, and someone comes along and says, you know, there's a city 100 million miles away. But there's a freeway, and if you'll just start, you'll get there. And it's a magnificent city. It'll make you forget all about Las Vegas. He begins to drive. Little Volkswagen Beetle. So driving along, but somehow it seems like you're the only one driving on the road. There's just trucks, and you call them Peterbilt trucks, coming at you all the time, and you're trying to weave through all these cars. They don't seem to have your lanes and my lanes. It's just all coming at you. While you're going to go. You try to drive, you know, 100 million miles, you got to go 100 some miles an hour, but you got to go slower and slower. Finally he's driving on the curb, the embankment. And now we're going 20, 30 miles an hour. Never going to get to the magnificent city at this pace. When all of a sudden here comes a Peterbilt truck, and it smashes into the little Volkswagen. The Volkswagen smashed. The driver is crazy. When someone puts his head through the window, all dressed in white, and he says, "Are you okay?" "I guess so." "Would you like me to drive for you?" "Yes, yes, yes." Slide over and let Jesus drive. Somehow, as he begins to drive, this goes much better. Somehow he seems to find a way to miss all this traffic coming at him. And pretty soon we're going 150 miles an hour on the way. Okay, we're going to make it after all. And after a while, I begin to realize, I think I can do this now. I see how you do it. Can I drive? Okay, he moves over, lets me drive. But somehow when I drive, the cars that used to be missing don't seem to be missing now. And pretty soon I'm smashed again, and I'm all banged around in the car. And again, he's at the window. You know, "Are you okay? Would you like me to drive for you?" And again, I said, "Okay, okay." And you can see this happens over and over again until finally I realize we'll never make it if I keep driving. And somehow we seem to do great when he's driving. No one hits us, and we go 150 miles an hour. You get the parable. It's a very famous parable, and it really started a revival. In my generation, we were in high school and college when all of this relationship idea, let Christ, have a relationship with Christ. It's not your behavior, it's a relationship with Christ. That was tremendous blessing to all of us. There were some critics, though, who said this is rocking chair religion. Just let go and let God. Let Jesus do all the driving. And he said, no, the normal Christian life is not so passive. It has to be more cooperation. We have to do our part. Well, it was our part that was a struggle. Didn't seem to work. New Year's resolutions, I'll do better. I'll not do that. I'll not yell at the kids anymore. I'll read the Bible every day. I will get in shape. I will lose the weight. I will stop smoking. I will not. And then a week or two or a month later, all the resolutions are struggle. What are you going to do? Is the Christianity a gift or grit? You know the text, Philippians 2, where it says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Work it out. Then the next verse, but it is God who works in you both to will and to do according to his good pleasure. Which is it? Work it out, or is it God? How do we balance this out? Well, I got some of these texts. Let me just read these to you. 1 Corinthians 9, 25 to 27. Everybody who competes in the game goes into strict training. I beat my body and make it my slave so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. 1 Timothy 4, 2. I have fought a good fight. In a wonderful book called Christ's Object Lessons by Ellen White. Character is earned by individual effort, by hard, stern battles with self. Conflict after conflict must be waged against hereditary tendencies. That's the grit sign. But there's also gift text. Romans 6:23, the gift of God is eternal life. Matthew 11:30, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. If anyone abides in me, he will bear much fruit. And so that seems to be supporting what is called natural obedience. If you'll just have a relationship, you will naturally begin to obey. Use the idea of the trolley car in San Francisco. You can imagine a trolley car stuck on the side of a hill. Everyone says, everyone out, okay, let's all push. You cannot. You could have 150 people there all pushing, and the trolley car will not go. But if you'll take that big gear and latch on to the cable's going, that big gear will pull the trolley car with 50, 100 people on it all the way to the top of the hill. We latch on to Christ, and He will give you the power, and He will work it out according to His good pleasure. Well, that's the debate. I was in Grants Pass, Oregon years ago, bought a house, and the same people that sold me the house also owned the house next door. So they were my neighbor. There was no fences. So we shared kind of our backyard, went right into hers. And I was a little shocked one time. I was single at the time. I looked out my back window, and here was my neighbor sunbathing, but minus some parts of her swimming suit. And you have a choice. One, you can just give in. All right, I'm just going to sit here and ogle all I want. Second, you could want to look, would like to look, but with sheer willpower and gritted teeth, you turn away, wishing you could go the whole time. Or number three, somehow you have bought into a whole new set of values and principles. You want to see people as the whole person. You want to see their face and their character and who they are as friends, and not for just their sexuality or their body. And you walk away, and it is easy because you have made certain values that have decided how you will live, which is the normal Christian life. And many people, of course, would say the middle. It's a struggle and a battle. There is a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. Outliers has an idea, as he did research over people who were at the top of their profession, and they were outliers. They were just incredible. Almost everyone had spent about 10,000 hours in getting ready and preparing for this particular stage they were at in their life. They look at the Beatles. There were many music groups in Liverpool, England in the early 60s. But the Beatles had a chance to go to Germany, where they played in bars and clubs for 8 or 10 hours every day for a year and a half. And they came back to England, and they became the Beatles. 10,000 hours. They looked at the hockey players, the best hockey players from junior hockey all the way through the minors till they become the world professionals. 10,000 hours. Stephen Jobs and Bill Gates, these other giants who started these big, huge computer companies. They're all about my age now, the early to mid-50s. And every one of them, maybe they were bright, yes, maybe they had high IQ, but they had access to computers. Back then, mainframe computers that filled whole rooms. And they had a chance to work day and night, and most of them added it up, and it was about 10,000 hours they had spent paying their dues, preparing. Someone else did a study. Why are our Asian students the best at math and science testing and grades in our country? And they figured out they came from the rice family, rice-producing countries of Asia, where families had had to put all this time into being rice farmers. 365 days a year, 6 to 5, 6 in the morning, you're out in your rice fields. And that character of work was passed down. Is that what it takes to live a godly and righteous life, to get over sin? Is 10,000 hours of grit and struggle and battle until sins will finally yield? Or is there another way? When I was in Oregon as a young pastor, we had members coming to us to have demons cast out. And I was part of a group that did some demon exorcisms for a while. They didn't want to go through any 10,000 hours. They just wanted to lay down with their heads on a pillow, and we would claim these texts, how Christ had victory over the demons and cast the demons of temper and anger and whatever else out. And hopefully it would just be in an hour or two, not 10,000 hours. So which is it? I have a wonderful friend of mine. He's retired now, a great, great friend. I remember he told the story as they became Christians. Their family was struggling to really have a good family life. Everybody watching television. So they had a family meeting and said, we're going to put the television up in a box up in the garage. No more television. Well, he went to work one Sunday to do something, and he realized, his work was about done. The Green Bay Packers were playing right now. He thought the whole family was gone, got the box out, got the TV, turned it on, watching the Packers. Little boy came to the door, playing out with his friends. Jumped to the door. You can't come in. Didn't want him to know. Dad, I got to go to the bathroom. Go to the neighbors. Go somewhere else. No, it's our house. I want to come. No, you can't. Quickly put the TV back in the box. He said the next day I came home and my wife was sitting there, had the TV out, watching the soap operas. Realized we were weak. Finally smashed the TV to bits. Someone else, they couldn't control the television, cut off the plug. Then they went and spliced the plug back on. Then they cut it off again. He said, eventually they were sitting in the corner watching the TV on a 6-inch cord. Struggle to fight with willpower. What are you going to do? Well, here's a story. Matthew 22 is the banquet. The great story of the banquet. The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. And he sent his servants out to invite to the banquet. In my church, I showed a little clip of what is called Babette's Feast. You can go onto YouTube or whatever. It's a classic from Denmark about this old man who was a religious cult leader. And after he died, his daughters and a few people had their little religion. But it was miserable. Everyone hated each other, gossips and grudges. When all of a sudden a lady, Babette, showed up at their house, came on the wind, worked there for years. One day she won the lottery. Someone had bought a ticket for her. She said, before I go, I want to make you a feast, Babette's Feast. And the whole little church group came, and it was an incredible feast. And it made everyone, melted their hearts. And now they're singing, and they're laughing, and they're forgiving all their past sins. And then they thought she would leave. She said, I can't go anywhere. Why? I've spent all my money. What about the 10,000 francs you won in the lottery? Oh, I spent it on the feast. And there is the parable, is that God has made a feast for us. He has spent everything He has in Jesus in giving us grace. And He uses the kingdom of heaven as a feast. It's a happy time, what religion is supposed to be. Forgiveness. Jesus uses one of the greatest pleasures we know, eating and drinking, in order to equate what the kingdom of heaven will be like with God. And then to get all these excuses. People came back with excuses after this invitation to the banquet. I've got a new land, new property, or I just got married, I want to be home. All the things they would rather do than to be with the king. It's heartbreaking to God when people decide the things they'd rather do than to be with Him. Notting Hill's a story, crazy movie, where Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant says no to her. No, it will never work. You're a high movie star, I'm just an average person. She walks out the door, and then he realizes what he's just passed up. He passed up an invitation to be with Julia Roberts, and he drives all over the country to be with him. That's what Jesus wishes. We would realize what it is to be a banquet with Him. So the invitation goes out. At least 4 invitations go. In verse 3, He sent His servants to those who have been invited. Number 2, He sent His servants to go get them. Now it's time. All right, everything is ready. Come. They refused. And then number 3, verse 4, it says He sent more servants. Tell them who've been invited, prepared my dinner, come. And still they didn't come. Number 4, in verse 9, He says, go to the street corners, the highways and the byways, and invite everyone you find. Finally, the invitation starts with the Jews and goes with certain elite groups. And finally, the invitation goes to everyone. In my church, we say grace, everyone, everywhere, every time, everywhere. Everyone is invited. The invitation is free. The banquet is ready. Everything has been prepared. Not we'll bring some and you bring. It's not potluck. It is all free. The gift is free. The invitation goes to everyone. Jesus has done everything there is for salvation. On the cross, Jesus said, it is finished. Everything is ready. There is nothing more that has to be done. Sometimes we had a tradition in our church that It wasn't all done until 1844 when something more had to be done. Okay. But everything that needed to be done for the banquet was ready at the cross. Jesus has provided it all. There's the invitation. And now it goes to everybody, good and bad. Good and bad. Do you want the bad people there? Or maybe it's the good people. Maybe you're tired of the good people. I'm going down to our church meetings in Atlanta tomorrow morning as I tape this. And often there are some good people who are picketing out in front, who think the church is Babylon, the church has lost its way. They are good people. They are righteous. They're passing out pamphlets out in front. They're sending out video clips. They think that you have gone wrong. They are the good people. Sometimes it's scary, some of the good people. The invitation goes to the bad, but also the good. The invitation goes to the Pharisees and the police and the food police and the clothes police, and the invitation goes to everybody, the good and the bad. And now we come to the robe. Matthew 22, verses 11 and 12. As we get into this passage, verses 11 and 12. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man not wearing wedding clothes. Friend, how did you get in here without the wedding clothes? We don't know what he was actually wearing. But because the wedding's at the end of the world, and the church of Laodicea in Revelation 3 talks about, you are blind and poor and naked, not covered. Buy of me robes of white raiment. And so my uncle said, the man who went naked to the wedding, if you go to the great banquet at the end of the world without the robe, it is as if you are going naked, without the covering of Christ. You think you're rich and don't realize you're wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. You ever felt naked spiritually? You go to the doctor's office or go to the hospital for some tests, and you go into the room and they'll say, take your clothes off, and they give you this little flimsy paper or little pajamas you can wear, and you feel naked. I went up, when I was in college, I went up to Big Sur on a weekend to go celebrate getting almost graduated. And we backpacked up into these hot springs, and I walked into a nudist colony, and here were naked people everywhere. Very uncomfortable to me, and I left as quickly as I could. None of us really want to be naked. And yet that's what this parable is about. People who try to go to the wedding banquet without the wedding clothes. And when this man said to this one, he said he was speechless. He had nothing to say. He knew better. He knew that he had been given the wedding clothes to wear, and yet he had refused to wear them. And so we have two parts of this parable. There are two parts of righteousness. There is the one part, which is the invitation. It is free. Everyone is invited to come. But the second part, you have to wear the robe if you want to be in there. And so somewhere from the time when we are invited to Christ and we come to Christ and receive forgiveness, until that time when we are in heaven, where there will be no more police and no more counselors and no more hospitals and no more... Somewhere there will have been a change from the time we came to Christ until we are safe to be. There's going to have to be some changes. There's a robe we have to wear. And that's the struggle. How can we wear this robe? How can we get this robe? So, what are we going to do? There's another parable here that was used sometimes. Someone offers you a Ferrari. Let's say you win a raffle and you win a $180,000 Ferrari, and it will go 200 miles an hour, and it's free. You just have to keep making the payments. Down payment is free. You got to pay for the gas, the insurance, and finish the payments. Oh, I can't make the payments. I can't pay the gas. And that's always the problem. If you have the invitation, it's free. But the robe is the payments. I can't make the payments. I can't somehow find the willpower to get rid of these sins so I can be changed enough to go to heaven. Thank you very much for the forgiveness which was free. But what about these payments, the life that you have to live a godly, holy life, and the commandments? And you can't make the payments. Can we find a way where God will not only make the down payment, but make the payments. That's the challenge. And here's the answer, Revelation 19, verse 9. Blessed are those who are invited to the wedding supper of the Lamb, for the wedding of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready. And what are you going to wear for the wedding? And here's the bombshell, Revelation 19, verse 8. For linen, bright and clean, was given her to wear. What is the linen that is given her? The wedding garments. It's the white robe of Christ's righteousness. And in the NIV, in the New International Version, it says, the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. This is not forgiveness. This is not the robe of forgiveness that Christ gives to us that is free to all. It is the robe of living the righteous life, the righteous acts of the saints. These are the payments. Having the willpower to live a godly and righteous life so that we honor God with our lives that we can't do by ourselves. And it says the fine linen was given her to wear. And here's the gospel, and here's the bombshell for you today. The life, the second part of righteousness, is just as free as the invitation. The invitation goes to all. It is free. Everything is ready. And the robe of living out the righteous life, Christ's righteous, worked out in the life to live a godly and righteous life, is just as free as the invitation. It is all a gift of God. Yes, it's going to work through our lives. Yes, we're going to be the car going down the road. Yes, we are going to read the Bible and keep the commandments and keep the Sabbath and do mission trips. But it is all by the power of God. He works in you both to will and to do according to His good pleasure. The gift of God is eternal life. It is not just our blood, sweat, and tears. It is Christ's blood, sweat, and tears that comes into our life and makes a difference. And so, to live a godly life is a free gift. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Matthew 6, verse 33. Jude 24, now unto Him who was able to keep you from falling. May it be so for you. God bless you all.